In 450 BCE, the greatest historian in the ancient world stood at the entrance of a structure so vast, so impossible, that he said it made the pyramids look like a modest achievement. He described 3,000 rooms, endless winding corridors, underground chambers so sacred that even he was forbidden to enter. His name was Herodotus, and the place he described has never been found. Let that land for a moment. We are talking about a structure that the most well-traveled man in the ancient world, a man who had seen the Acropolis, the temples of Babylon, the monuments of Persia, described as the greatest building he had ever witnessed. He wasn't talking about a tomb. He wasn't describing a palace. He called it a labyrinth. And he said it exceeded the pyramids in wonder. That one sentence should stop you cold, because the pyramids still stand. They are still here. We can still walk around them. But the labyrinth Herodotus described has disappeared entirely from the surface of the earth, or it was buried, deliberately, by someone who did not want it found. Herodotus wrote about the labyrinth in Book 2 of his Histories, his account of Egypt, written around 450 BCE after a personal visit to the country. His description is precise, uncomfortably precise for something that supposedly no longer exists. He wrote, and I am quoting directly, "It has 12 covered courts with doors facing each other, 6 to the north and 6 to the south. A single wall surrounds the whole. There are 2 kinds of rooms in the complex, 3,000 in total, 1,500 above ground and 1,500 below. 3,000 rooms, 1 continuous wall. Underground chambers connected by winding passages that he described as, quote, marvelous beyond words." He wrote that the upper rooms he was permitted to inspect himself, but the underground chambers were forbidden. The Egyptian guides who accompanied him refused to even discuss what was stored below. They told him only this, that the underground halls contained the tombs of the kings who originally built the labyrinth and the sacred crocodiles of Egypt. Herodotus pushed no further. He wrote, "Of the underground chambers, I can only speak from what I was told, for the Egyptians would not show them to me." Here's the question nobody asks. What were they protecting? Herodotus was not alone in describing this place. Around 25 BCE, 4 centuries later, the Greek geographer Strabo visited Egypt and wrote his own account of the labyrinth. He described a structure near Lake Moeris in the Fayum region, a massive complex of interconnected halls, each one dedicated to one of the 12 nomes or provinces of ancient Egypt. He wrote that the sheer scale of the building was, in his words, impossible to believe without seeing it. Diodorus Siculus, writing between the two, recorded the same location, the same general structure, and the same tradition, that the labyrinth had been built as a central meeting place where all the rulers of Egypt's provinces could gather under a single roof. 3 separate ancient writers, 3 separate centuries, all describing the same place, all placing it in the same region, and all of them long dead before archaeology ever thought to go looking. The structure they described should be one of the most significant archaeological sites on Earth. So why is almost nobody talking about it? The search for the labyrinth began seriously in 1888. Flinders Petri, the same man whose drill core analysis we discussed in our investigation of ancient Egyptian machining, arrived at the site of Hawara in the Fayum with a team of excavators and a specific target. Ancient geographers had placed the labyrinth near a pyramid beside Lake Moeris. Hawara had a pyramid. Hawara was near the ancient shoreline of Lake Moeris. It was the most logical candidate. What Petri found beneath the sands confirmed he was in the right place. Vast quantities of cut stone. Enormous foundation blocks spread across an area of roughly 304 by 244 meters. Column bases, fragments of statuary, paving stones showing heavy wear from thousands of years of foot traffic. The remains of something enormous had been here, but the structure itself was gone. Petri concluded that the labyrinth had been systematically dismantled, its stone quarried and removed, most likely during the Roman occupation of Egypt. He found the footprint. He did not find what stood inside it. That conclusion held for over a century. Until 2008, when a team of researchers pointed a ground-penetrating radar directly at the ground beneath Petri's excavation site and found something nobody expected. In 2008, a joint Belgian-Egyptian research project known as the Matterhorn Expedition deployed ground-penetrating radar across the Hawara Plateau. Their findings were published in 2010. Beneath the surface, beneath the foundations Petri had excavated, the radar revealed a continuous underground structure. Not rubble, not collapsed stone fill. A structured anomaly extending approximately 304 by 244 meters. The exact footprint of the labyrinth described by ancient sources. The team's report concluded, quote, "The presence of a large underground structure is confirmed. Geophysical survey data indicate a vast subterranean complex beneath the Hawara Plateau. They identified what appeared to be chambers, corridors, and open spaces, consistent with the layout Herodotus described 2,500 years earlier. Let that register. The labyrinth was not dismantled. The labyrinth was buried. It is still there, below the surface, below the layer of stone that Petri mistook for its remains. Intact, sealed, waiting, and nobody has been allowed to open it." After the Matterhorn expedition published its findings, the logical next step was obvious. Full excavation, ground truth the radar data, open the underground chambers and see what Herodotus was forbidden to see. That permission has never been granted. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities reviewed the expedition's findings and placed the site under restriction. Now, there are legitimate reasons for archaeological caution. Excavation can be destructive. Political and logistical considerations are real, and Egypt has thousands of sites competing for limited resources. But here is the anomaly that mainstream archaeology cannot fully explain away. The ground-penetrating radar data was published in an academic journal. The findings are peer-reviewed. The underground structure at Hawara is not disputed, and nobody has gone back. Nobody has explained why. Herodotus said the underground chambers were forbidden. Over 2,000 years later, they still are. If Herodotus couldn't get past the door, and modern archaeologists are being turned away from the entrance, then what is sealed inside those chambers is something that has been protected across 2,500 years of history by every civilization that inherited it. Every day on this channel, we follow the evidence they don't want followed. Subscribe, because the labyrinth is just one of them.